Well, hey, Ge.Holla, G.Holla.
Girl, Ge.Holla. Charlamagne the God here, man. Salute to you.
Shout out to Ge.Holla, reaching 1 million listeners on his podcast.
Shout out to Ge.Holla.
Oh, y'all said entertainer. Shout out my guy Ge.Holla on my Celebrity Life podcast.
It's your girl Cynthia Bailey from The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I'm sending a shout out to G.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to My Celebrity Life. I go by the name of Ge.Holla. It's not Gula, it's not GeHolla, it's not GeHolla, and it's not Ge.Holla. I'm going to get Stacey down. She was like, Ge.Holla. It's not Ge.Holla. It is Ge.Holla. You'll find this interview on GeHolla.com. That's GeHolla.com. Man, we got a really, really, really super cool guest this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, for you. You know, you gotta get prepared. This is like a one in a lifetime type of sit downs where we're gonna get a lot of understanding, a lot of wisdom, a very good narrative about a story of just being persistent, being patient, knowing what you want, seeing the vision, and we like to use this word now, we're using a lot, manifest. I mean really creating your own magic. It goes by the name of Bob Sumner. Woo! This resume is so heavy right here. I want y'all got to take a deep breath as we go a little bit into it before we let him on to the show. We're talking about the co-creator of HBO's hit series Def Comedy Jam. Oftentimes, people give a lot of credit to Russell Simmons, which he deserves to, but this young man right here, Bob Sumner, should be sitting right on that same level because if it were not for we're talking about discovering a lot of these comedians on this list. They are amazing. They really are. But you're talking about the late, the great, the forever king of comedy, or one of the kings of comedy, Bernie Mac. What does he mean to so many people out there in the world of comedy, the fans, his movies, his TV shows? He is like one of the most number one memes I've ever seen from all just his facial expressions. Guy right here, Mr. Bob Sumner.
How you doing?
All is well. How about you?
I'm kind of jet lagged, man. I'm just getting in from the Bay Area. I've been down there for 4 days with the return of the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition, and this is like one of the places where in the early 90s I was able to identify who some of those superstar comedians you just mentioned. This is like where I first saw some of them, and, you know, with this being a new decade, it's time to do this thing again. So I'm just, you know, the timing is perfect. I'm just getting back. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing? Besides the jet lag?
I'm great, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be speaking with you right now.
All right. Thank you. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak with you as well. So I want to go back a little bit into your childhood and then work my way back up to the present before we get into like other co-hosts and other questions. So I was reading that you were a New Jersey native. Could you tell a little bit about your childhood and when you first realized that you had a knack for discovering talent?
You know, it's very interesting because I grew up in an entertainment world. Honestly, you probably know that I'm presently a curator of comedy at the world famous Apollo Theater up in Harlem. And as a toddler, I used to sit in those seats at the Apollo because my parents would bring me over there because my uncle is actually in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was in a singing group called the Platters. And that's kind of like where it all started for me. So, you know, it out the womb, I kind of had my eyes on the prize.
Okay, because I've actually went on a tour past the Apollo Theater, and it's a very iconic place. I've yet to go in it, but I've noticed, you know, you have Lauryn Hill, Lee, a lot of people got their start on Apollo Theater. With your young age, did you realize how many great people would grace that stage? Was it the presence that you could feel while you're inside of the theater?
Well, I mean, of course, because, I mean, with me being in the theater as a young kid, I was able to see, like, the James Brown reviews and the Motown reviews where you had a young Stevie Wonder and the Temptations and, you know, the Supremes and all of that. And then we were always there on amateur night as well. And on amateur night, you know, you had a lot of future stars and stuff. So it was just something the aura of the room. And I mean, people were coming from all over the country trying to hit that stage because, I mean, it's for real when they say that the Apollo Theater is where stars are born and legends are made. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I had the pleasure of being part of presenting the first 3 non-musical acts into the Apollo Walk of Fame, and Richard Pryor, Red Fox, and Moms Mabley. You know, so the Apollo was, you know, it was not only big for music, but, you know, the comedy legends was coming through as well.
Oh, I want to move forward a little bit into your college days. I was reading that, you know, you spent a time as a club promoter for musicians and comedians, and you had your own college radio show called the Friday Night Mellow Madness. What made you want to get into that avenue?
Well, at the same time, radio was a big part of my life. Not only was I at the Apollo as a kid, but as a teen, and I should say even as a when I was coming through grade school, elementary school, I should say, my older brothers had a singing group, and they had a song that made it to the radio. And that was always intriguing to me when I met the radio DJs and stuff. It was like, wow, you know, I could do this type of thing. And then my mother started working. She worked at RCA Records in New York, and she handled like royalties for like Sam Cooke, Elvis Presley, all that stuff. So I was always close to records, you know, all of the new records she would bring home and everything. So it led me into like just loving music. And then when I went to college, the university that I went to had a big radio presence in the area. And somehow, you know, my knowledge of music led me to this radio station, and I got on there and I did a show, like you said, called Mellow Madness. And the reason it was Mellow Madness was because it was like a little bit of everything. I would play like old school Delphonics and Blue Magic, but I would also play a lot of funk, like Parliament Funkadelic, Cameo, and then, you know, where I was from in Jersey, you know, we were known for a lot of other genres of music and as well as like club music and things like that. So, you know, I was just entrenched in it. And it was before comedy.
So how did you make the transition? I know you said you mentioned the Apollo Theater and watching comedians as well as musical acts. So how did you make the transition from music into developing or discovering, rather, comedians?
That's a great question, because it was actually a one thing led to another, back to the other. When I was in college and I was doing my thing in college radio and stuff, I actually got involved in promotions in terms of volunteering. I was trying to move up in the ranks and get to know all of the right people. And one of the right people that I happened to get to know was a man named Teddy Powell. If that name rings a bell, if you watch The Godfather, the Black Godfather, the documentary that Reggie Hudlin did on Clarence Avant, you would hear that Mr. Avant mentioned a man named Teddy Powell, who was a big music promoter and club owner in the North New Jersey area in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, which I was a part of. And I just pretty much, because I had tie-ins through the, through radio, I found a way to help promote his shows, like going, around the corner. And then I started, like, going and putting posters up downtown North and stuff, him. And then there was a man named Alif Muhammad, who was one of his mentees. So I was working with these guys, and then there was another guy by the name of Chuck Brownlee, who was another local promoter who was doing a lot of big jazz shows with like Dizzy Gillespie and Ramsey Lewis, and I had a chance to, actually sit down and chop it up with these guys, and everything led to back to these shows would always have comedians who opened up the shows for the music acts. And I just tied it all together when it was time for me to do my thing. It's as simple as that. Crazy,
So with all the entertainment influences that you grew up around, do you think it was destined for you to be in this field?
Well, it was going to be this or sports. And that's why I treat the way I do my comedy shows and stuff no different than if I was an NBA scout or an NBA general manager or NFL scout or general manager. It's like the same way. I knew I was going to be in the music, entertainment industry, or I was going to be in the sports. So I'm really not surprised, with the exception of, I was kind of rough around the edges when I was coming up, everything. And that's why when my man was saying, I had a perfect life, and they always been perfect for me. And I have a documentary that's being worked on right now that's going to really tell the story about how I lived my life, because my life in the streets was no different than my life in the classroom. I was getting A's both ways. Yeah.
So that life that you speak of, that you mentioned, that will be told more in the documentary, do you think that is what helped you to have that knack in this field? Because, you're here in the entertainment business, you got to be, sometimes it can be cutthroat, so you got to know how to maneuver through it in order to survive. Do you think that helped you as well?
There's no doubt about it, because I was able to see what that street life of cutthroat literally was like, as well as, I started to go to a HBCU when I was coming out of high school. I was going to go to Tuskegee. And then all of a sudden, Seton Hall University came, and I saw, not only was I going to be able to save a couple dollars, I was going to be able to see both sides of the world, because Seton Hall University is right down the street from Newark, New Jersey, where any and everything goes. And then you have Seton Hall University, where people become, prestigious doctors and lawyers and all that craziness. And you get to see the other side of life. So I was kind of prepared for both ends of it by doing it like that.